The Imperial starship Ember's descent hung in the void like a wounded beast, its hull breached in 3 places, atmosphere venting into the cold vacuum of space. James wiped the grease from his hands onto his coveralls and studied the readouts on his datapad. The distress beacon had been broadcasting for 6 hours before the salvage crew picked it up. 6 hours. Too long for whoever was inside. Another rich tourist who thought they could navigate the Kuiper Belt without proper shielding, muttered Aliana, James's partner, as she maneuvered their small repair vessel closer to the crippled ship. Her short dark hair was tied back, revealing the neural interface ports along her temple that flickered with diagnostic data. James shook his head. That's no tourist vessel. Look at the alloy composition. That's Draconian Royal-class armor plating. We're dealing with someone important. The Draconians were an old race, far older than humanity's mere 3 centuries in space. They had ruled a dozen star systems before Earth had even developed warp technology. Their scales shimmered with an iridescence that humans could barely comprehend, and their lifespans stretched across millennia. They were also notoriously proud and kept their distance from the younger races of the galaxy. All the more reason to collect our salvage fee and get out, Aliana said. Though her hands were already working the docking controls with practiced precision, the airlock hissed open, and James stepped through, his boots magnetizing to the deck plates. Emergency lights cast everything in a sickly red glow. The ship's gravity was failing, and he had to pull himself along the corridor using the handrails. Behind him, Aliana kept her hand on her side armor. Sensible precaution in salvage work. They found the passengers in what remained of the stateroom. 4 Draconians stood in a protective circle around a 5th who lay on an elaborate couch that had been bolted to the floor. Even in the dim light, their scales caught and refracted the emergency lighting into rainbow patterns. They were magnificent towering beings with elongated necks and eyes that held the weight of centuries. But it was the figure on the couch that drew James's attention. She was smaller than the others, her scales dulled to an ashen gray. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, labored breaths. The metallic scent of Draconian blood hung heavy in the air. "Stay back, human," one of the standing Draconians hissed, his voice a deep rumble that James felt in his bones. His scales were deep crimson, marked with golden patterns that indicated high rank. "You are not worthy to approach the Crown Princess." James raised his hands slowly. "We received your distress signal. We're here to help." "Your kind cannot help," another Draconian said, this one with scales of midnight blue. "Our healing chambers were destroyed in the collision. Without them, Princess Kayeth will not survive another hour. We sent word to our fleet, but they will not arrive in time." Aliana's voice crackled through James's cum. "James, I'm reading massive internal trauma. Her organs are shutting down. If they had working medbays, they don't," James interrupted quietly. He approached slowly, ignoring the warning growls from the royal guards. "But I might be able to help. Our species have different physiologies, but trauma is trauma." "Let me look." "Absolutely not." The Crimson Draconian stepped forward, blocking his path. "No human has ever touched a member of the royal bloodline. It would be sacrilege. It would be murder if you let her die out of pride." James shot back. He'd dealt with enough aristocrats in his salvage career to know when to push back. "I've kept plenty of systems running with duct tape and prayers. Maybe I can do the same for her." The princess stirred, her eyes brilliant gold even in their dimmed state opening slightly. "Let him," she whispered, her voice like distant wind chimes. The guards looked at each other, uncertainty flickering across their alien features. Finally, the Crimson One stepped aside, though his clawed hand remained near his plasma blade. "If you cause her any further harm, human, your death will be legendary in its pain." James nodded and approached the couch. Up close, he could see the extent of her injuries. Her left side was crushed, scales cracked and bleeding that strange silver-blue blood. A shard of metal protruded from her abdomen. In any other circumstances, he wouldn't even know where to begin, but James had spent 15 years keeping broken ships and failing systems alive in the harshest environments known to mankind. He'd studied alien biology out of necessity. You couldn't repair an alien ship without understanding how its crew functioned, and he'd learned one universal truth: life wanted to survive. He pulled off his gloves and pressed his bare hands against the worst of her wounds, applying pressure to slow the bleeding. The moment his skin touched her scales, several things happened at once. The Draconians gasped in unison, a sound like wind rushing through crystal caves. Princess Kayeth's eyes flew open, blazing with golden light, and James felt something surge through him, a warmth that started in his chest and flowed down his arms into her body. The princess's scales began to shimmer. color returning to them like dawn breaking over a dark sea. The cracks sealed themselves, metallic blood flow slowing and then stopping entirely. James watched in stunned silence as the metal shard was pushed out of her body by regenerating tissue, clattering to the deck with a musical chime. Impossible, breathed the midnight blue draconian. She's healing. James tried to pull his hands away, but the princess caught them with surprising strength. Her clawed fingers gentle despite their power. Her eyes met his, and in them he saw shock, wonder, and something else he couldn't name. What are you? She whispered, her voice stronger now. Just a mechanic, James said, his voice shaky. I fix things. The Crimson Guard dropped to one knee, followed by the others. A healer, he said with reverence. The legends spoke of humans with the gift, but we thought them merely stories. Aliana's voice crackled urgently through the cum. James, what the hell just happened? The ship's sensors just lit up like a Christmas tree. What did you do? James looked down at his hands, then back at the princess, who was sitting up now, her scales fully restored to their brilliant copper and gold coloring. I don't know. I just wanted to help. Princess Kyath smiled, revealing rows of crystalline teeth. You did more than help, James the mechanic. You reminded me that humanity's greatest gift was never their ships or their weapons. She stood, towering over him, and placed a clawed hand over his heart. It is your refusal to accept the impossible, your stubborn insistence that anything broken can be fixed. She turned to her guards. Send word to the fleet. Tell them to prepare a state welcome. James of humanity has saved the crown princess's life. She looked back at him, her golden eyes warm. And tell them that humanity has just earned itself an eternal ally in the Draconian Empire. James ran a hand through his hair, leaving a streak of grease across his forehead. That's great and all, but can we maybe get your ship patched up first? Because speaking as a mechanic, you're still venting atmosphere from 3 decks. The princess laughed, a sound like bells echoing through crystal halls. Ever practical, you humans. Very well, James the mechanic. Show us how you fixed the impossible. As James worked to seal the hull breaches with Aliana's help, the Draconians watching with newfound respect, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just changed the course of galactic history, all because a mechanic had refused to let someone die, and in doing so, had touched something ancient and powerful that recognized in humanity what they themselves had forgotten, that compassion was the greatest technology of all.